That would be Nathan's car.
I was going to say, it wouldn't be mine. My battery wouldn't allow that.
About 3 times a day that happens.
Is it a sensor? What is it?
He has a very touchy key fob. And if he puts his hand in his pocket just the right way.
Just enough.
Nathan!
It's not Nathan.
Is it you? Go turn your car off. Complex, the Board of Metropolitan Police Commission. And we have a roll call. And we'll start with Mike Hancock.
Here.
Bill Fletcher.
Present.
Mike Roberts.
Present.
Susan Austin. And Eric Nichols. Sorry. Everyone is here, present and accounted for. If you all would please join with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pay attention to the horn in the background.
I'm going to sit it off.
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you're going to have to go here now.
And if you all join me in a moment of reflection, what a sad state that this year we've already started out and have had so many officer losses across the country.
See that? Don't hit the lock button.
That is about annoying.
Thank you. I would make a motion we certify the executive session from Tuesday, January 15th at 6 p.m. and certify that the only item received was in accordance with Indiana Code 5-14-1.5-61, subsection B5, that we received information about and interviewed prospective employees in no other matter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made, all seconded, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that carries. Executive session certified. Next thing, first thing up, is election of an officer for this. By the way the police commission's written, the council appointment is the president of the police commission. So we would entertain nominations for a vice president of the police commission, which is currently held by Mike Roberts.
I would nominate Mike Roberts if he would accept.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to continue Mike Roberts. Is there any discussion? Okay.
Congratulations,
so
Mike.
All signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Congratulations, Mike. Motion carries by vote.
See
Okay.
it happens whether you're here or not.
That's what he says.
Okay. Do we have any amendments to the meeting agenda? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
So moved.
And we have a motion seconded.
Second.
All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Then we need to approve the meeting minutes from the prior meeting, which would be the meeting minutes from December 4th, 2018. Has everybody had a chance to review? Do we have a motion to approve as presented?
Motion to approve the previous meeting minutes.
Second.
Second. Motion made and seconded. All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Public requests to speak. Do we have anyone here other than Cheryl? Okay, well, come on up. This is our time that our Boone County Sheriff's
Hi,
Office
Art
comes
Nickel,
up
Boone
and
County
gives us
Sheriff's
updates.
Department. I don't have anything official tonight between Tom and Brian. Some of our projects that we've previously been working on are still chugging along. Government grinds to a halt over the holidays, so we had a lot of problems with that. But Locution is coming along, which is the automated fire dispatch. Pulse Point is coming along, which is the application for your phone regarding cardiac events. EMD was actually implemented, and it's working fairly well. Trying to get the fire departments and medics out to a scene with better information so they can send the appropriate personnel, apparatus. The only other project that we've got going on is our radio implementation project for the county and the smaller agencies on the west side, so that'll be a lengthy project that we're trying to get started. So, mostly here for questions and observation. Anything for the Sheriff's Department?
You guys ready for this weekend?
We made it through last weekend.
You had a big one this morning.
We had two of them.
Yes.
The second one didn't even get noticed, so.
Yes.
But yeah, we've got staff in place for this coming weekend, so hopefully they learned from this past weekend.
That's all we hope. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chief, come on up. It's all yours.
Commissioners, you had in your packets the final year statistical data due to the fact that we had our meeting on the 15th instead of the first Tuesday. It gave us time to get all of the data records together for you. So I just want to hit some highlights mainly for the people at home. Calls for service for 2018, 15,806. We were down 661 from last year. Case reports taken by the officers, 797. We were also down 115 from last year. Investigations, 303. We were up 38 from last year. Arrests totals for the year, 527. That was down 36 from last year. Motor vehicle crashes covered, 297. That was down 21 from the year before. And computer forensic cases, 107. That's obviously an uptick because that was a new unit that was started in 2018. So the statistical data documents are there for your review. Happy to answer any questions. We did end the year on total of 5 drug overdoses that were handled by the department and 1 overdose death accounted from those 5. The expense report, I understand, was a little difficult to read. The encumbrances are all complete. Working with Sherry Williams, I think those are coming before the council this next time around. I think our budget, we ended up with a surplus of just shy of 11%. So, all in all, we did pretty good all across the board. I think all town departments did from the meeting that I attended. Anything else on statistics?
Chief, real quick on stats, on the drug and alcohol page, it looks like from last year, all of the columns have been trending downward. Is that something that we're seeing countywide, do you know, or is that?
I don't think we're seeing it countywide. I think Lebanon is still having their issues, but I think as far as the Sheriff's Department goes, Zionsville, I think just the increase in enforcement that's out there, I think is what's helping to curb that. Hopefully that we've gotten enough cases into the media that people know that if you get caught up here, the prosecutor's office and the judicial system's not going to be kind.
Because I was looking at these columns, and every single one of them, with the exception of one, is down from last year, which is definitely a positive trend.
That's adding one new officer per shift since the 2017 data was taken. So I think we're definitely on the right track as far as the enforcement abilities to stop the progression of it coming through our community is probably the biggest pitfall right now to try and overcome. Anytime you live near a major interstate in your operations, you're going to have that.
Question, Chief.
Sir?
I see we're down probably 600 hours on reserve hours. Now I know the reserves help
They do.
curb cost.
Reserves went from being a necessary force to being a supplemental force for us once we got the manpower to where we needed it. The problem that we're having now is that a number of our reserves have been hired both here and other agencies, and the general populace is just not interested in becoming reserve officers. We constantly have that application process wide open, and very seldom are we getting any responses at all. We've even tried to recruit from reserves from other agencies. But it's not just us. Everybody is seeing this. It's just like the application process. There's just less and less people wanting to get involved with it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Chief, are you seeing any issues with the stop arm violations now that we're back in school?
We have had a few issues since school started. I have not been made aware of any since school restarted from the winter break. They're doing a real good job, especially the Lebanon buses, because they have their stop arm cameras. The chief up there, as soon as he gets notice, will ship us down the video so that we can actually see the vehicle, and we'll get that out to our guys. With Zionsville schools, they don't have the stop arm cameras yet, so we have to rely on the notes that the bus drivers take, and then that information, when it's sent over to us, then we ship that out to our officers as well. I know Lieutenant Batts has been strong in having enforcement out there of a morning and of an afternoon. I've heard a lot of the school bus drivers report back that were being followed around by police cars in Whitestown. So
And they have no problems with that?
they have no problem with that at all. Council, we have no old business carried from last year, so if it's all right, we'll move on to new business. Under new business, in reference to our executive session, you had the opportunity to review candidate number 5, and that is whatever your privy is.
I open the floor for any discussion, or I saw nothing that would warrant not pushing or promoting number 5 along and accepting his application. Seems that with the credentials brought to us that they match very well with what we have. This person's already an existing police officer and can come right in and has already worked in some aspects hand in hand with our department.
Yeah, local, that helps.
Yeah, I agree. Candidate 5 is a good fit.
Candidate number 5 is already very well known to members of our agency. Works on with a couple of our agencies on a specialized team in the county. He already knows our record system, already knows how the dispatch system works. It's just a matter of him becoming totally oriented to our geographical area, which I think will happen pretty quickly. I'd be amazed if he spends more than about 5 weeks in FTO before he's out on his own.
I'd make a motion we move forward with candidate number 5.
A second.
Motion made, seconded. All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? No. Chris, don't panic. It's not your agency.
Commission, the next item on the agenda deals with the Axon body camera proposal. If you recall, we brought to you a little more than a year ago an upgrade proposal from VIEVU. We were having a number of the VIEVU first generation body cameras that were failing at a rapid pace. They made an offer to us to upgrade for about 50% of what it would have cost to start the program totally over again, and we took that opportunity to do that. Since that's happened, Axion has acquired VIEVU, and in the process of doing so, obviously Axion has a product of their own and are no longer manufacturing anything for VIEVU. They have a warehouse of VIEVU cameras, and once those are gone, those are gone. Axion is willing to what's the word I'm looking for? Honor the VIEVU contract that we had with them, but they also gave us a proposal to being able to transition out from VIEVU cameras to Axion. And so I'm going to ask Captain Ralston. He's the one that's been spearheading this and dealing with the folks from Axion, and he'll come up and he'll run you through what it is that Axion's proposing.
So March of last year was when we went to VIEVU. They were acquired by Axon in May. For the first 6 months or so that we had the VIEVU system, we had no issues with it whatsoever, but they're no longer really supporting that software. So things have gone downhill tremendously in the last few months. We've made contact with them, and then that's what brought on this proposal. So basically what we're looking at, and I've had a demo of that camera. For instance, New York City Police Department is now going to that camera. It's a very well-known camera that's been in place for a little while now. Basically, we're looking at they're going to discount us the $30,142, which is what we paid back in March of this year, and put that towards their rate. If you look at, I don't know if you guys all have this page with the numbers in front of you, but year one doesn't actually start until 2020. We won't owe anything at all this year, but we can go ahead and get put into that camera here within the next few months. They're going to discount that rate in 2020 for us at the $9,000, and then we go up a little bit, year after that for 5 years. Every 30 months, they will go ahead and send us a brand new camera for replacement. That's an automatic thing. So at that point, that's when once I got this, I took it to the chief. To me, it's no brainer. We're not out any money. We've had the cameras now for a year. Like I said, the software, we've probably sent back 10 cameras in the last 4 months that have just gone down. They'll replace those, but like I said, they're just not keeping up on the software. The demo of Axon's evidence.com software is Azure, just like everything else. It's a solid program. We've looked at it, and I don't see any issues with it. Any questions as far as what this proposal is saying?
What was the remaining amounts that we were to pay the other company?
It's paid off.
It's paid off.
We paid it in full back in March.
And that total was?
That total was $30,000. So they took the list price, and they're basically honoring that $30,000, putting us in year 2 right now is what they're doing. That was a very cheap camera. Mm-hmm. This is a good price. A lot of cameras out there, I'd bring you double this amount to begin with. And those cameras were good for a while, like I said.
6 months.
I think this is definitely a better camera and a better system all the way around, for sure.
And there's no other two competing cameras. Is this?
This system,
This is
these
the
people
state of the art.
won't be bought
This is
out.
what the majority of the police departments are going to.
They have. They're known for buying out companies, and this is what they're going to. And yes, there's other body cameras out there.
I guess my question, Sergeant, is 10. We had 10 fail last month, or in the last couple months.
3 to 4 months, we've had approximately.
And their
10.
technology is the same as
No, it's
not the
different
same.
They bought
them
that
out.
company.
They're using some of their technology, but
They're not using any of their
upgraded it.
technology.
Okay.
They're just kind of halfway up keeping the software so it runs because they do want to honor the contracts that are out there.
Because it sure sounds like we got it stuck to us with the first one.
But we're getting right back to the discount on this one.
Right.
Yeah, we are getting a discount. And like I said, we owe nothing this year at all.
Basically, Axon bought BVU to take them out of the market.
Okay.
Yes.
And Axon is who we currently have a contract with for tasers, correct? So this
Yes.
brings it all together
Yes.
into one company. Will do our body cameras and our tasers.
And hopefully at some point our in-car cameras.
So for storage, they're using, you said evidence.com. What was VView? What were they using?
Doesn't know what it's called?
Cloud. It was all cloud-based. Right.
The other issue that we were running into with the BVU software is BVU version 1 software is not the same as BVU version 2. And so we had
Incompatible cameras,
videos
right?
that were on version 1. They had to be run on a certain interface. Version 2 had to be run on a different interface. This goes to a cloud-based style of evidence software that will actually be able to upload all of our videos and operate through.
Sounds like we maybe learned our lesson a little bit with the VView on what not to do. We kind of learned our lesson a little bit on what not to do.
When they were supporting it, it was a good product. I mean, they bought them out, and they're basically, like he said, they've got them all in a warehouse, and their software's still running. They're just not updating it. So, I mean, it worked well in the short term. I have, like I said, demoed this product, and as far as sending videos to the prosecutor's office or to attorneys, this new system is a lot better.
Is this enough storage? I see the quantities like 6,000 or 60. What does that refer to? It's like
That
terabytes
is
or
a good. I can't answer that.
do we
I
have enough in the contract?
You might be able to answer that a little bit better. They basically explained it to me. The guy kind of asked us about how many hours of video we use per officer. He put that in their system. That's the number he came up with. But you know they're used to doing that, so I'm trusting that number right now.
So what is 6,000? What's that break down to? The quantity of the evidence.com storage, it says 6,000. What's that equate to in megabytes, kilobytes, whatever bytes, terabytes?
I don't have that.
I would have them find out, but when the rest here and there, the rest, he gave the quantity of cameras for that, but it was something, that's why I came up with that. Whether that's 6,000 or.
Yeah, I'd like to know that.
Sure.
It's kind of an important piece of the puzzle, I think.
Scott,
Right, correct.
So do we flag it, and then those that aren't flagged
Correct.
archived, or is
We-
part of-
The ones that have a current case assigned, was one prosecutor, of course, the video, the flash, 366 days.
Correct.
Our system
For 1 year.
after what, a period of 30 days?
We leave it up long enough so when the adjudication takes place, we can still hold that.
Scott, I noticed on here that the quote was issued December 22nd and it expired December 31st. What is the impact of that?
I have, let me see if that's the same one, because I had him reissue the quote. Make sure you're not looking at an old one. It does state that. I talked to him today and nothing had changed. I mean, obviously, we would verify that before we signed any paperwork, but he assured me that the quote is still an accurate quote. I will get a new one made up with those dates.
Yeah, I get the dates updated and also the storage, what that represents.
And My opinion on this is we're kind of in a pickle where these are dropping like flies and we are losing videos. I was hoping to make a decision tonight. I do have the guy's cell phone number if I need to step out and, make a phone call on this 6,000 and find out exactly what that is.
And I guess my other question, Scott, is
date.
we've already got an expired contract. Is this contract going to be good after?
Yeah.
If we approve it and
I talked to him today, but
council approves it, and
I can call him
obviously
right now and
tonight's not the
verify
final
that, or-
decision.
So we already have a contract with Axon for the tasers, but it looks like there's some taser assurance plans in here. Is that a continuation of what we've got on the other contract, or are we going to have two separate contracts, or do they roll together into this?
As of right now, it's two separate contracts.
They're owned by the same company, but they're not
Okay.
in the same divisions.
I can't remember what the details were of the other contracts, so I don't know how the interplay between the two. If we're paying for the same service twice or anything like that.
No, you're probably paying for the services for the camera, which is a separate division from the taser portion of Axion. What we're paying on taser deals with if we have a taser failure, it's automatically replaced, and then every, I believe, 3 years, they replace the entire units, all our units. So we get an upgraded taser every 3 years.
Is the camera, is it pretty much the same
Oh, yeah.
technology as far as like officer activates it, or is it activated automatically?
It's very similar. It's got a few extra buttons than what we currently have, but it's a very similar in size camera, and they're a little different spin on the hardware itself.
The problem that we run into, every person who runs into this, it's just like cell phones and computers. You buy one, and it's really already outdated because you're buying something that's already been manufactured, and there's something new that's coming out 3 to 5 months later. We've had problems with Wolfcom, was the very first ones that we went with back in 2013. Those were supposed to integrate with a radio system, work as microphones and steel cameras and all the great things that they said it would do. And then once we were totally on them, they wouldn't do, and we were having radio failures. It was crazy. Then they tried to do an upgrade to a newer version of their camera, and they offered us free upgrades if you were and did that. And then those failed, and then that company was bought out, and then that's what moved us to BView, because they were the latest and the greatest that were out there. They were real spec. Everybody around us was buying them up. And then Axion, I guess, feeling like they could corner the market, whereas BView stops manufacturing the BView camera.
And it sounds like big agencies, I mean, they're going to be around. No, I heard him say New York City.
Understand that every 3 to 5 years,
Right.
there's going to be newer technology.
But this company itself may actually be that person because they're
But look for them to acquire another company.
right. But this is currently the big dog.
Yeah. What's the name of it? Bodyboard. And those work off of yourself.
Well, just a couple things that I would bring up is that our legal has not had a chance to review the master services and purchasing agreement, to review that in terms of how that fits with our town's uniform services agreement that we have on every contract. So if we would move forward on pushing this forward to the council for approval with our recommendation, it would be subject to the legal review and the addition of the uniform services agreement language to the contracts, and based on the same pricing. The other thing is that, Chief, it's unfunded. So it's unfunded, so it has to go to council.
Right.
So, but you did mention you had 11% surplus, didn't
I
you?
believe that's what we came out with, was what Reedy was showing. Yeah.
What's the value of doing it over a course of years or going ahead and paying it off?
I don't know if you get the same deal by paying it off up front, whether you get the automatic replacement or not. That's
So
what we'll have
let
to
me
check
understand what
into.
you're saying, Susan. Go ahead and take some of that. Yes, overage 11%. And let's get this knocked out so we're
Get
not
it
talking
knocked
about
out.
it again next year. I totally agree, and I don't know any company that wouldn't take that payment up front.
Well, I'm not saying they wouldn't take it up front. I'm just saying I don't know if we'll get the same deal. I haven't been involved in this as much as what the captain
Yeah,
has.
almost a better deal. Upfront money.
Possibility.
Any business I do, but, yeah. I'd go ahead and make a motion that we present it to the council.
Real quick, before continuing discussion, I just noticed in the notes, there's another $5,000, up to $5,000 fee to transfer to migrate existing data from what we've got now into this new platform. So I think we have to consider that additional $5,000 on the total.
They're going to charge us, Scott, to transfer this data from the... So can we get that in writing as well?
Yeah, because it says it could be up to, or not to exceed 5,000.
Yeah, we need that in the language if it's all possible. That'd be great.
And there's no extra 5,000 for the migrating of the data?
If you look under notes on the back page, that's the one I was speaking of. It's under notes on the back page, page 7.
Are we looking to migrate that data? It looks like there's still 12 months from start date of quote to remove
Yeah, they
data.
start falling off after 12 months. At that point, by the time we actually get this thing rolling, I mean, it's not going to be a whole lot of data in there if we need to do that at all. We can probably do it.
That would have been my next question. Is that something that you could do? I'm sorry? Megabytes?
Gigabytes.
Gigabytes? Thank you.
Is that enough?
With retention of the data,
And he was looking at our video account currently as well as, what we think we use. So, he's had a good look at that over the last March. So.
there's also pretty good discussion.
But didn't you say that we were dropping video off the cloud? We were dropping some of that video every 30 days, so,
It's not flagging.
okay.
Yeah, unflagged video, just generic. I'm guessing just generic stop video and such.
Yeah, but we're going to be able to drop before we actually.
Okay.
Why don't we, because there are a number of questions, and I'm looking at the calendar, and we're really only 3 weeks until we're going to be back again as a commission, and we'll get the Axion rep here, and that way he can explain straight up exactly what's in the quote, and that way we're not making a moving forward subject to this or subject to that, and we can get everything ironed out. That'll give Alex an opportunity to review the quote and get that done prior to our next meeting. I think that might be
The other thing
Yeah.
we might want to
better
think
route to
about,
go.
it's a 5-year contract, and with this kind of technology getting phased out so fast, do we really want to commit to 5 years? I mean, it might be
Well, and I think
cheaper to do
that
it
might be
way,
a question
but
that we
there's
want
trade-offs.
to talk to the rep about. What I envision with what they do with Taser is that they get you into a 5-year deal, but you're not locked into that particular camera. So if they come out with,
30 months. Every 30 months equals 30 months.
so you're going to get an upgrade.
You're not paying for the cameras, you're paying for
That's service.
Yeah. So I think that might suit everybody a little bit better if the Exxon rep's actually here, or you can ask him questions as to exactly what.
If you can get that information to Alex so he can start reviewing it.
Yeah.
I found the agreement, so I've been scrolling through that, so I've got that.
Okay, so that'll be old business next meeting.
All right. Moving on, under item C, you have the independent services contract for the computer forensic unit, also the uniform service agreement addendum that was there. Without this, our data forensic unit is going to be basically shut down until we can either A, get people trained into a specific skill set that will allow us to move forward. This proposal will allow us to move forward at our current rate while training new individuals to get them up to that skill set level over the course of the next 24 months. This has been a long time process coming to get this unit up and running. It's a setback. There's no doubt about losing your computer guy, but it's not a knockout punch. It's something that we can recover from and continue to build and keep operational moving forward. I've mentioned prior to the meeting started in some of the conversations that I've had with people, the dollar amount that we're looking at for the IT service that will be provided. We'll never be able to find somebody that's willing to do the IT services for that dollar amount. That's more than what, or far less than what the town pays for IT services. That's nowhere near the level of what this gets into. So I would respectfully request that the commission send this on to the council for approval so that we can continue our forensic operations and our ICAC operations and continue the program.
Yeah, I'd like to, if you notice on the back page where the invoice is, it states on the invoice 25 hours maximum per week. I'd like to see that wording added to the compensation line somewhere in there stating that a maximum of 25 hours per week.
Yeah. My proposed change to that would be, and this is on page 1 of the independent contractor agreement under compensation, which is the second paragraph. It would then read, for services performed under this agreement and upon submission of an invoice and appropriate documentation, Whitestown shall pay to contractor the compensation of $35 per hour, not to exceed 25 hours per week, as specified in the form invoice in attached Schedule A.
I like it.
How many existing computer forensics cases do we have right now that are open to be worked?
You would know better than.
Currently, so doing my whole thing, about 20 years.
The other part of the consideration is, if you recall, a few months ago you tasked me with finding funding for a piece of software hardware for the forensic unit. We were able to get that accomplished. That funding is currently in-house, but is setting on hold right now. We haven't ordered that piece of software yet until we know what's going to happen with this. If ultimately the unit gets shut down, then all that funding will need to be refunded back to the agencies that put it forth.
Are we sure 25 hours a week's enough to make sure you get the job done?
I think so, based on our current caseload. And this is going to be, he's going to be doing other things other than just the forensic stuff. He'll be monitoring our cloud network, taking care of troubleshooting in individual issues with the officers' interfaces in their cars and so on and so forth.
So basically, our in-house IT guy.
Remote in-house IT guy, yeah. But all cases, if you read through the independent agreement, all of the forensic cases have to be done on site. So he'll be coming here and actually doing any of the forensic work. None of it can leave the building. That's done for chain of evidence purposes. So he'll be spending both time here as well as dialing in remotely when necessary.
So I'll be blunt. So you got this new job lined up, right? Do you think this is a long-term thing that can sustain? I know you're going to have other commitments, 25 hours in a week. Okay. What's the long-term plan here?
Well, we timed this for 24 months, and then what we're hoping is that within that 24 months that we have some in-house folks that we can get up at least to the operational level. Obviously, they're never going to get in 24 months. We're not going to get somebody up to the level that he's at, but at least up to the level that we can keep the operation running and then expand on that education moving forward. The forensic training will never go away. It's just like law enforcement training. You're going to constantly be going and sending people out to advanced schools once they get those skill sets. One, to keep them sharp, and two, to show them what the latest hackers are doing out there on the dark side.
Is this something we can recruit for?
Yeah, but you can't afford it. We can't afford it. You'll be paying a forensic person what you're paying a chief. This isn't something that you can hire a kid out of school, coming out of IT school. And this isn't just networking or computer hardware. And this is knowing the ins and outs of it.
Well, my thought was maybe there's someone out there in another department that's looking to make a move.
We've been contacted by a number of people, IT people, that are looking to make the move, but they don't have that kind of background. They don't have some of the necessary certifications in Microsoft that would make it beneficial to bring them on and then to train them forward. I'm not saying that there's not people out there, because I'm certain that there are.
I'm just thinking long.
Yeah. But this isn't, you've heard me say this hundreds and hundreds of times. This is a new area for law enforcement where we're getting into this, and we're way behind the curve. We were fortunate enough to have somebody for an extended period of time that was able to get us here, and now it's time to start building on the next generation of computer cyber people, so officers. I think this unit eventually will be, like, for lack of a better term, a geek squad. These will not be uniformed officers that you normally see. These are gamers who spend lots and hours and hours and hours in front of a computer screen. But this, unfortunately, this is where law enforcement's going.
Chief, based on the 25 hours per week that we're putting into the contract and the rate of pay, works out to about, if he uses all 25 hours per week, works out to about $45,000 a year. How does that fit into your budget?
If we do not hire to replace his position until later in the year, then we shouldn't see an issue at all. If we move to try to replace him prior to that with a full-time person, it may cause me to pull funds from other areas within the budget.
And this doesn't indicate whether or not there is an opportunity for a subcontractor to do this. Are you guaranteeing that all the work will be done by yourself?
This, I saw in there someplace that we can cancel
21 days.
21 days
Yes.
by either party for no reason.
Yes.
Okay.
How does the rest of the departments handle IT? I'm not as knowledgeable, but
It's more investigations than just IT.
right. I know. I'm thinking. There's some of these items in Schedule A that could be done by just general IT, networks or stuff like that, where I definitely see the value of the cybersecurity side. But I mean, are there pieces of this that we could carve out and look at?
We don't have an in-house IT. It's farmed out right now. And we're going through a RFQ with an audit to see what all the needs are moving forward. So it's before we're ready to do that.
What are we paying an hour for that outside service, Susan? Do you know?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what we're paying an hour for that outside service?
I don't know at this point.
They're under a contract.
It's a contract.
Annual contract. It's not an hourly.
Sure.
I think it was, I thought it was 30.
Based on some of the things that are listed in Schedule A, that seems like some fairly unprecedented access for a contractor. Is that something that would typically be given to a contractor in this situation, or is it just because of the police background that's involved here?
A lot of it has to do with the fact of the police background and the fact that we're running records over those secure networks. The FBI came out with a mandate for all agencies who run NCIC IDACs and store IDACs documents. You have to have background clearances on any person that has access to that area, and that would be another requirement. If you went to farm it out, you would have to have whoever's working on that network would have to be criminal background cleared in order to be able to do any work on the network.
So then I guess my next question would be to Alex. Is there any concerns with the items listed on Schedule A as far as accountability or oversight or liability for this body or the town?
I mean, as far to your question about the confidentiality, I mean, there's a provision in the agreement that covers that. And so any breach of that provision, the Savage Group would be subject to a breach of contract suit and any damages that would fall from that. In the same vein, any breach of the services, not providing the services is contemplated in the agreement that are on Schedule A. Similarly, there'd be a breach of contract action that could be brought, and any related consequential damages that would fall out from it. I can come up with a myriad of worst-case scenarios, and that's what you litigate about. So, do I have any specific concerns? I don't know enough about IT and those specific services to really speak to that. I know that the chief and Captain Ralston perhaps could speak more intelligently about that, or even Mike.
I just got a general question. Does the Savage Group hold insurance for any sort of liability of, data breach or that sort of thing?
And actually, I've had the L6 since 2015.
Yeah.
It's not an old we could roll out all the and give the stipulation.
So there's a lot of what ifs, and I get that. With the 25-hour-a-week minimum or maximum, rather, I apologize. Is there going to be times that he's going to need to attend court and different things for investigations that he's going to? I mean, he's obviously got another job.
Not generally for this portion. Court is kind of like, they're in the same realm that we are here, is that they're dealing with such a new technology that the attorneys themselves haven't caught up to be able to say, here's the report, now explain to me how you got X, Y to...
So we don't see a problem with him having to, I don't know, be a professional, whatever, to speak to the court on something that he's investigated.
We haven't seen
Since
it
he's the
yet.
guy. Okay.
Will we see it in the future? I don't know. We haven't seen it yet.
Are there any officers identified at this point as kind of growing, I guess for lack of a better term, growing up under his tutelage as he's going through kind of mentorship as they grow in those roles?
We have a couple that have some background, but it's not to this level. He's tested a few. Those would be the ones that we'll be reaching out to see if there's the ones that we can bring along.
Have they shown some interest along the way as well?
Yes.
So going back to Alex for just a second for the question I had. Looking at our uniform service agreement, that will become a part of this contract? And
Yeah,
that will
I've
cover
got
some
that
of those
pulled up
what
as well.
ifs?
Say that again. I missed the last part of your question.
Our uniform service agreement will become part of this contract, and that'll cover some of the what ifs that I had as far as liability and accountability and all that.
It does, and that's part of your packet as well. We've already prepared that, and so it's a separate document. I just was looking through that as well, and it does cover, again, the confidential information, indemnification from the provider, the Savage Group, to the town for failure to perform under the contract, on and on. So, as with any other service provider that the town hires, those standard protections and provisions will be in place.
Yeah, thank you.
Something that I don't see in the contract is that I think we agreed early on that some of these skill sets have been obtained as a result of Whitestown sending Ed to some classes and him taking advantage of those classes. I don't see any transfer of those skill sets contemplated in this contract, so that we are obtaining some of that knowledge we paid for back to our employees. I see nothing saying that he will help, cross-train our employees to pick up on any of this. So where do we end up at the end of 2 years? We end up with another 2-year contract? Or because, stepping back, other town areas where we have expended significant amounts of training monies or schooling monies, there's a clawback, if you will, that if you leave after a year, you have to pay that back. If you leave after 2 years, you have to pay back 50%. You have to do that. And I would think, knowing the situation we're now in, that's something that we need to contemplate incorporating into the police division as well, so that we are not caught flat-footed again. But secondly, we need to make sure that the skill sets for the classes that we're attending are being cross-trained to our current staff, so that we don't end up with a big gapping hole in our coverage. And I don't see that anywhere in this current contract. Is that, any cross-training, any sharing of that. And likewise, I would, if this is what the invoice is, I would want to see a much more detailed invoice. I understand that there would be things we would not be able to know because it's part of it, but certainly there's a cause number that it could be associated with so that you know how many hours per cause number or something like that, so that we can detail what these hours are being spent on. It's awfully hard for me. I am not an IT guru. I hate it. But how you have oversight over somebody whose work you don't understand, I have troubles getting my arms around that. You know, if you don't understand the work.
Yeah, and who here at this table has that?
Nobody.
Nobody, right.
And we don't, which is why we have to make sure that we are cross-training everybody. If this is where everything is going, we can't just rely on one person to do this and then we get stuck. So I would like to see incorporation into the contract that there is a skill set transfer to our employees as part of this.
I'm trying to think of how we would go about wording that, because it's not a skill set that everybody is going to be able to obtain. Some people will, some people will not. Some people will get to a certain level, they'll become novice, and others will, somebody will just take to it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how you go about wording that in such a manner as...
Well, at the end of 2 years, if this is how long this contract goes, we don't want to be in the same position.
Right.
Because
Correct.
we've not
Correct.
trained anybody
I
to do this.
What officers do we currently have on the road that have some IT background and some investigation background?
That's what Susan was on fishing from the very beginning. My doctor was training some they got their advanced now certification. And since somebody else class, preparing for certification, you're not paying so much for the transfer of knowledge. And I can transfer knowledge to you all day long, but if you're not certified before.
Then in that case, again, we need to have a clawback. We need to start incorporating that if we're going to send somebody there and we're going to spend the money on this certification, that it will be used in our behalf for X period of years before we lose the skill set that we've helped get qualified. And that needs to be incorporated into Lexipol as well.
Alex, can you help me out here with
a mentorship term or something in Schedule A as to the
Yeah.
tasks? Maybe cover that.
Let's have a patent attorney on board.
Yeah, we can put something, Ed, if you're open to that, I mean, we can come up with something that will incorporate that, you know. Okay.
Yeah, because and to take a step back, there is always a hard stare taken when somebody leaves the public sector, the public sector, and goes to the private sector and then starts consulting for them. The state of Indiana requires that you stand back a year before you can do anything back with the organization that you're coming from. And I know that I do believe the town council has discussed this multiple times and had been going down this road talking about this. And now this is two in a very short period of time that I'm sure that they'll be looking at this very seriously, because we want to make sure that we are above board and make sure our ethics are always above reproach, and for any community looking in on us. So this is something to consider as well.
So the state statute calls for 1 year separation?
Yes.
So, Chief, this is a question for you. So how will we prioritize work for Ed? I see some things in Schedule A that are more valuable than others, and so, I mean, how will he go about his daily work and figure out what he should be working on?
network outages? Obviously would be number one, because that would stop everything from operating. If there's no network issues that have to be dealt with, then we would probably move to forensic, and during that forensic process, training. That would be the best opportunity to have somebody working alongside him for that given period of time to get the best bang out of the buck. I would think would be to have have them exposed to it.
I agree. And then as far as mentoring, I know there's some of this work that can be done remote,
Right.
but it's not specified that all of it has to be on premise. So to mentor, he needs to be here. So how do we figure that out as well to ensure that there's enough hours for mentoring, but the contract allows for him to work remote? So
Well, the contract does not allow him to work remote on anything forensic.
right, I'm talking
That
about
has to be
network.
done
Well,
from within the building.
but network stuff can be remote, right? So, but that's the stuff that we also need to cross-train on for mentoring. So it's just a gap I see.
There'd be very few instances where I would, to be honest with you. I don't, I'm taking another time.
Understand that?
I'm sorry, Ed, where is home? Where is home?
Noblesville.
Noblesville. So, Ms. President, I'm caught up on this state statute. Tell me more.
I don't believe it applies in Ed's situation. I mean, it does apply to state employees. I don't believe that it, we'll double check this, we're going to,
I mean, is there a precedent that's already been set
Right.
somewhere? Are we going to, set that precedent? Are we going to?
none that I'm aware of, but I know the statute that Susan's talking about deals with, say, for instance, somebody at IDEM, that's project manager. They can't hire out to an environmental contractor, Inc., turn around and start working on the same project. That there's a
So we
conflict.
should be
There's
fine.
also a level of
But we don't know.
where you are in the state agency to the extent that it would apply. I know that when our firm has hired people that have, from the state, they have to get an ethics opinion from the state ethics counselor. But again, this is state level. I don't believe that it reaches to the
So
municipal
what do we
level.
do at town level then? Do we have any?
That's up
ethics?
to the count. I
Would
think that's
that
what
be for the
Susan was
council?
talking about.
That's up
That would be for the
looking at.
council to
That's
decide.
up to the council
That's
to
right.
decide whether or not they do,
Okay.
they do that. When we've had a planner leave, we stipulated not anything for a year.
Correct. So I should just take that out of my thought process then, probably at this time, at this level. Let the council decide.
There's nothing currently in the ordinance.
It's not anything that we need to worry about at this level. It's a council ethics issue.
It would be across the board, yes, for that. But I do think that we need to decide if this is something that, if council would say they don't want somebody doing this, this would definitely impact this.
I definitely think you need to add the amendments that you suggested, but I'm with Chief on the fact that if we don't do something, it's going to put us way behind the eight ball down the road with our forensics and our, what Ed's specialty is. I think if we wait another month or 2 months or 3 months, then, that workload just stacks up and then we're farming it out to another agency and we're spending more money than what we would be spending to pay Ed. That's my opinion.
So worst case scenario, network goes out tomorrow and we don't have this contract signed, what happens?
Doesn't matter. If we sign this if we send this to council tonight,
I walk
the
around and
contract's
hit a
not
bunch of
signed
reset
till the
buttons
next
and hope
council
it all
meeting.
works.
Worst case scenario, might be able to force you to go over once, so.
I'll call Ed and beg him to come fix it for us.
You'll drive over and get it then, right?
I'll go get him.
The purpose of it to go with multiple redundancies plus, so it's 99.999%. So, it's only been down one time, and we got around that work, that was because discussion.
And that's another comment I'd like to make. Ed knows the system. I mean, and I've done a little investigation on what it costs to get someone to just do IT alone. $35 an hour is not bad, guys.
No, I'm
It's really not.
not saying it's a bad price.
You know, the ethics thing, I'll move that to council. I'm not, here for ethics. I'm here for, what's right for the department and the town, so.
And I just confirmed and pulled up the statute. It is for state officers and state employees. It doesn't trickle down to or reach to the local level.
No,
So-
it doesn't, but
Right.
that is something that I know our council has discussed.
Right.
So, that doesn't mean,
That, you're right, the town council certainly has it within its prerogative to adopt an ordinance or a policy that would address this and
so
and
if
set
we're
that
going to
standard.
take this to the council, we have to vet out all of these issues before we take it to the council. That's what I'm saying.
So do we need to
So if
call
there's
for an
something else we
executive
need to
meeting to
figure
vet
out
this
here,
out?
if there's something else we need to figure out here, we need to figure it out now and get it into your hands to work it through before we take it to
Well, I
council.
think you need to put the wording in there that, if we pay to send you to school, then you need to be with the department for 24 months. I believe that's what you stated. And if not, then you will obviously be charged back those monies on a retroactive basis or whatever.
A lot of it was grant money, though, right? And
We only paid $750 for all the courses we sent him to. I've already investigated that as
it's
well.
per diem stuff, right?
We paid,
but it's per diem
we paid
stuff.
1/3 or 1/4 of one course. Everything else was all taken care of. So
but
it's not a ton of money, but it's
Yeah,
good wording.
Even though there were grants available and we didn't pay for that out of pocket, there was still a value associated with that training that if somebody else would have gone to that training alongside him, we might not be in this situation. So I think one of the things that Susan's getting at that we need to look at are what other options do we have at this point? I mean, I acknowledge the expertise of the contractor that's come forward. I realize the setback that his leaving the department has presented. But at the same time, I echo what Susan said earlier, that I do feel like we've paid for this once, now we're being asked to pay for it again. It's like we paid to send somebody to school, that person left, and now they want to sell that information back to us. So it's like we're paying for the same training or education twice. Buying that back, the $35 an hour may be a great rate. I don't know what the going rate is for IT or for somebody that could pick up and have this expertise and provide this service back to us. But we don't have that information in front of us as to another quote. What is somebody else offering to come in, or has anybody even reviewed what's in Schedule A and offered a bid? I mean, I don't know what to compare this to.
I'd like to speak on that if I could. Love you to death, Mike. But who are you going to get to come in here and do this?
And we might not.
That's going to have the security clearances already and the ability to do it day one. And what's the value of that?
And I don't disagree with that statement at all, but I think that's one of the things that Susan was trying to get at. If we forward this to council, considering the possibility that they may implement something with the 1 year, the deal like the state has, can we tell council that we've vetted all the possibilities, that we put this out for bid, and nobody else can even come close to matching this bid or the dollar value, the associated value of the training that would be given back to us? I think it's just one of the things that we have to consider when we put this forward to council as they decide what they're going to do with the ethics issue.
I agree, but I think time is of all importance here. I think there are some things that we might be able to farm out, but then you're paying two people to do one job. And are you saving, or are you spending more money? You know what I mean?
Exactly, and we don't know at this point. We don't know what
I've looked
another
this
bid
over
would look
front
like.
and back 3-4 times this week, and as much as I hate to be the guy that says I don't see any other option, I don't see any other option. Not currently, and not without our forensic investigations going down to nothing, and now we're farming out, paying someone else to do it. That's my opinion.
You know, and by the same token, I've been going through this since we received this document. I read through it the first time. I thought, it's pretty good value. It's something we need. We've got to have it. We can't just let the department falter. We've come too far. We've built this program to be what it is. We can't just let it go away now and and lose that momentum that we've gained with Ed's guidance and everything on this. But at the same time, I keep thinking in the back of my head, we've paid for this once, now we're being asked to pay for it again.
I agree,
And
Mike.
is that enough to kill the deal?
But we
Probably
definitely
not,
need to do some
but it's-
amendments to
Yeah.
it. I agree with you and Susan both. Some amendments definitely need to be made. I agree with both statements. I'm just going to leave it on the table that I'm for this.
On the topic of Gray Key, I know you said that was kind of on hold for right now. Is the party that's going to fund that, are they aware of the situation, and are they
Yes.
still willing to fund it with Ed being a contractor versus an employee of the department?
Well, the
Does
thing
that have
is,
any bearing on?
if we're not able to do this, we don't have a choice but to shut down the unit.
Understood. But are they okay with like contracting that
Yes.
out? Okay.
We wouldn't be able to answer that. So
That's the unfortunate truth of it all, is that we're in a position that if we don't act, the unit's going to shut down. There's just no other way around it. We have no one in-house that can even remotely pick up and even start doing something forensic.
Ed, do you foresee the need for this to be a 2-year contract? Or is your goal to,
there's a 21-day cancellation policy on both sides. So my goal would be trying to get somebody to do as quickly as possible. That's why I was in the So
but do you think it'll take, that's what I'm getting at, do you think it's going to take 24 months?
it's
Or,
taken 18 years to perform.
Realistically, I would say yes. It's going to take 24 months to get 1 or 2 people up to where we can start sending them to advanced trainings.
So do you see us doing this again in 2 years?
I don't know that we'll necessarily have to do this again in 2 years. I think we'll be in a position within about 18, I'm hoping, within about 18 months, that we'll start sending additional staff to advanced trainings to get them the necessary certifications that they need to take this unit and walk with it.
So this,
5 to 10 years from now, you're going to need multiple forensics.
Yeah.
so this is basically our bridge then, to get us from where Ed leaves and we've got nothing to, not the same system we would have, but to a point that they can function.
Correct.
Grow from there.
and strategically, if this is where we're going, then we need to make the commitment now that we're sending multiple people to each of these trainings.
Agreed.
So that we are bringing home the knowledge sets, we're getting it cross-trained, even if it's certifications that we're going, that the person, just like we do in the utility, the more people certified, the better off we are.
Always.
And so, they've got the skill set in-house that if somebody leaves, you can step right up. But again, going to that, I know that this falls underneath the threshold for professional services, because this would become professional services in your budget.
Yes.
And it would not be, and then that threshold is 50,000 where you do not have to go out for bid. So I do know that falls underneath that. Is this in the same category, Chief, or are you going to have to do an additional appropriation?
It's the same category.
Same category. I too don't know how we don't function without this. I don't want to see us in this position again, so I would like for you, Alex, to work with Ed and really tighten this down.
Sure. On the mentoring piece.
On the
and-
mentoring
yeah.
piece, so that we make sure, there are some things here that I'm thinking the setup and installation of mobile computing hardware. You've taught these guys this already, how to do it.
Well, but there's key aspects to doing the setups on the laptop themselves.
Okay.
Not just putting them down in front of people. I mean, you have to set the laptop.
But there are some items in here that would be relatively easily trained. Yes. Agreed.
Commissioner, if you remember a few months ago when we talked about the cyber forensic unit, when I first brought up Gray Key, and the thought process was floated that down the road, and I believe it may have been you, Mike, down the road, is there room for this to become a multi-jurisdictional kind of task
Correct.
force? That's kind of what we envision the forensic unit's going to turn into once the new building is in place. I foresee that there'll be somebody from Lebanon PD, somebody from Zionsville PD, somebody from the Sheriff's Department who starts down this same road to do these kinds of investigations, going to these different schools. We have one small cubicle area right now to put him into for computer forensic. Luckily, most of his training time, if this is approved, happens after hours when the office is empty. So it makes it a little bit easier for him to have that one-on-one time with whoever it is that he's training. Once we get 18 months out, we should be looking real close to the building being finished, if all goes according to plan, and that task force then would have an actual place to set up shop, and then we can all kind of piggyback off of each other. Because, quite frankly, there's going to be times down the road where either you have an officer that gets hurt and is off for an extended period of time, or, God forbid, we lose an officer, or somebody has to be reassigned for one reason or another, that we have that multi-group to fall back on. And in talking with the chiefs in the county, they're supportive of the idea, but we're just not close enough yet to be able to formulate it and put it on paper.
Alex, what's the penalty for canceling the contract if, say, the council moves an ordinance for the ethics piece?
I think, like Ed said, we would just give notice of the termination for, that would actually be for cause. And the addendum to the services, contract also has a provision that is subject to council appropriation and money as well, so that would tie in. So I don't think there would be a penalty. It'd be just notice and move forward.
That is one of the really bad things about having really good employees, is they get cherry-picked, which is why the council is also has talked about,
especially in a right-to-work state,
has talked about this, especially right now. Your timing is impeccably poor.
We've had that conversation.
Maybe one more item to this pricing piece. Where did the $35 an hour come from? And last I knew, the state grant to teach a basic class is $25 an hour. 35 seems cheap in reference to that. But
It is, and it was something that he and I sat down and negotiated out based upon what his hourly breakdown was when he was a full-time person, rather than to try to pay an overtime rate or an inflated rate. Quite frankly, I think he's doing us a service. By
keep in mind, we're not paying
the rate that he's coming in.
Unemployment taxes on this. We're not paying Social Security taxes on this. We're not paying
all of that shifted on
He gets
him.
none of that. None. He gets $35 an hour. He gets to take care of the IRS and everyone else, not us.
The last thing I knew, and I think the rate's still the same, but I could be wrong. that
You're probably
if you taught
pretty
a
close. I
basic
know
firefighter 1-2 course
at the
on
Law
this
Enforcement
state,
Academy, when we send people out there to teach, the exchange rate's $25 an hour.
So Susan mentioned the professional services, the cap, the $50,000. We come really close to that. Is that something we need to put language into the contract that we won't exceed that amount?
$5,000.
You can't exceed it based on the numbers that's already there.
This contract.
I think it comes out to $44,600. Huh?
45,000.
45,000 is a maximum you could do.
I mean, according to his contract, we can't exceed $45,000.
Okay. With the language that
With
we're
the
gonna include.
language, that we added to it. But we have other additional language that we need to have added.
I've been keeping track of all that, and so I'll get that made. And
Is that something we
circulate
can
that
have
to the-
added and have to council this month?
Yeah,
Council doesn't meet till next
I can
month.
get that turned around, subject to working with Ed on
next month, we can-
language
until
agreeable
when?
yet this week, so that you guys can review it, and then fire back any.
When is
we
the
don't
next
like
council
that.
meeting, Susan?
There is a council meeting the 23rd, however, I don't think we're taking additional items for it.
I don't
Yeah,
think
and-
that
and
should be
also
on the
you
agenda.
would
You guys
need-
would have to read it, in my viewpoint, you guys would
So
have
we're
to
looking
read
at next month regardless, and there's a council meeting next month after the commission meeting, correct?
Yes.
So what needs to be done in the meantime?
Well, I mean, I've been taking notes, and so you already approved the change about the not to exceed 25 hours per week in the compensation line. Under Schedule A, I've got a earmarked item Z that would be contractor will cooperate with WMPD personnel, so it doesn't just have to be officers, assigned to mentor and, train any of the services above. I mean, that covers that. I'll finesse that between now and putting
So
it in final
Susan,
form.
this sounds like to me that
Insurance, specific insurance language saying the contractor will maintain insurance policy adequate to cover any claims that fall under this. I don't think that's objectable. Where's my last one we've got here? Insurance, $1 million,
Detailed
the
invoicing.
mentor. Yeah, I did. I circled that as well.
Prior-
There is a place it's not very clear on the invoice where it's Ed Salvage to perform the services per my contract the following dates in a line. We can add in there that you have detailed accounting of the tasks and the amount of time spent on each. Same way that you get from my invoices.
And prior-
So I can add all of that in. If you guys are comfortable with that, you could approve it with those changes and move forward, so we don't have to wait until this body meets again next month and then go to the council. And I can certainly have those finalized, make sure Ed lays eyes on it, he's okay. He can delegate to Susan to review that as well and sign off on it on behalf of the board that I made good and have the changes in that we discussed. Then it can go to the council. So just trying to make it so we don't have to delay any farther.
Sure.
And have these forensic cases, I think, are probably the most important pieces on hold any longer.
So yeah, that's the big piece for me, and that's why I think prioritization, from the chief or whoever, a delegate to, when there's not critical incidents like network outages, what should Ed be focusing his attention on? I don't know if that's worth putting
Well,
the
we've already
contractors
currently got a
understood. I
backlog
think-
on forensic.
I think that
The
goes
most
on.
pressing one is we have an ICAC case that's laying on his desk that's local, that needs to be dealt with quickly. We've had it in-house now about 7 days, 8
There's
days.
not a day that has no causes to start this, but I haven't had one case pending for all of this.
And it's not just that. Guys' phones are going down, we're fixing that. We have computers sitting on the desk right now that the guy
That's
has
last,
in his car.
since I've left, I've still been taking care of it.
Yes.
There's no one else right now that that computer, he's out of the computer until this happens. So things are slowing down.
Yeah, that's scary.
I mean, you have officers who have the capability of utilizing the computer. Unfortunately, they also have the ability to
It's easy to
create
push
problems.
buttons.
Mike, to address, I think, your concern, another addition in the very first paragraph, description of services, the first sentence, that contractor agrees to provide to Whitestown the type and quantity of services listed on Schedule A hereto, the services, which, then add this language, which may be prioritized and assigned by the chief. I mean, that way, if, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Alex, one other thing, when you were talking about cross-training,
Uh-huh.
because as you said, it might be a gamer later on. Do we say that cross-train not only the police employees, but designees of the departments as well, so that we can cover outside if we hire somebody in who's not going to be a police officer?
My thought would be to say WMPD personnel, but we could say WMPD or town personnel or town employees. as assigned by the chief. My thought would be to
I would
also
just make
add
it
that. This is
WMPD
a,
employee, because
Just
if they're going to be a
WMPD
civilian
because
employee,
even
they're
if they're a
still
civilian, okay.
a WMPD employee.
Ed, do you lose your police powers?
As of this very moment.
You said in order to have access to the IDAX system, you have to maintain a clear background. Is that anywhere in the contract, or is that just?
It was
in the addendum, there's a provision, a catch-all provision, that the contractor has to be in compliance with all Indiana, local, and other laws, and so I think that would capture that aspect of it.
So will Ed be a reserve officer?
He could be.
Hi, Ed.
How many hours do you get with reserve?
I'm thinking of the police powers. The question was just asked. If he's a reserve, obviously, he retains his police powers.
Does that have an impact if he no longer has his police hours?
I don't-
Police powers?
No, because you can be
So-
we can have contract employees for this specific reason as long as they meet the criteria.
Right.
It's pretty much a national accepted standard because of the special of the task.
Okay.
That's why they contract employees.
Yeah. I'd also be concerned if we moved Ed to the reserve. When is he acting as a reserve officer? That he's not supposed to be
Yes.
paid, and when is he performing under the contract? It blurs those lines. So I think it would be cleaner just to keep him as an independent contractor and address the issues that the board's brought up this evening.
And that's why you're so smart.
So we'll put him on the line. Is there anything we've missed, Alex?
No, these are good additions, and I think clarifications as well that'll be helpful to Ed also in performing the services. And so I'm comfortable with them and the additional language that we've discussed. The one other thing, I mean, this could push the issue of the $45,000, but and I don't know if it would ever even come up. We're asked if 25 hours a week is enough. What if there's a situation, here's the lawyer, worst case scenario, some big forensic case or whatever, and you need to put more than 25 hours a week. We don't want Ed to be in a position that he stops, or he's already, so he's working on some cases, and he's at his 25 hours on Wednesday, and then the system crashes on Thursday.
Well, as a salaried,
Is it an average not to exceed?
yeah, as a salaried employee,
That's fine, yes.
I can
would think
speak
that
of
would be a
this.
time when Susan will be getting a phone call from me.
Right. And that's another way around it as well that I thought of. And we could do the average, like Susan said, across the year, not to exceed 25 hours a
total
week.
not to exceed.
Or not to exceed 25 hours a week, except as authorized by the chief of the police and the president of the Board of Police Commissioners.
Or make it a
Just to
monthly,
allow
make it a
that.
monthly salary. And
that changes.
no.
Changes the complexity of the
Well, I mean, you've got 21 days to amend or dismiss. Just a thought. Just a thought.
But that's the one issue that does come to mind.
Still
The
get
max
128
25
hours
is that I
before
don't
you
want to
hit
see a
the
situation
threshold
where
for the professional services.
it's Friday and he's hit his 25 hours working on cases, and then things,
So-
we need him on Saturday.
Going back to the prioritization, now that I'm thinking back, but as an independent contractor, can you tell them what to work on and when to work on it without them being a salaried employee? Or do you,
Yeah, I think we're still, we can set the task list for that. I mean, just like,
but we can't tell him when he can work on it, right?
Maybe a prioritization level, but there
Right.
can't be a task list, but here's what.
here's what we need.
But we can't tell him, hey, you need to be here at such and such date, at such and such time, as long as he completes the task, right?
That's right. So we've got the latitude now, the contract has the latitude now on both sides that these are the types of things that he's going to perform, the services that were performed under the agreement, not to exceed 25
We
hours a
can't
week.
tell him when to do it.
That's right.
So the mentoring thing.
I mean, but I'll add the caveat to that is he needs to do it when it needs to be done, right? I mean, he can't just delay, otherwise he's not performing the services under the agreement.
Certainly. I just don't want to get too into the weeds of like when it has to be done, or else it could fall into some.
So are there weeks, Ed, that you'll only need, say, 10 or 15 hours?
Well, just to give you an idea, and I've learned this so I can speak on it, every forensic case is different and unique on its own. I learned that no one piece of software will do the reporting that you're looking for. You have to run the electronic against multiple pieces of software. Each of them extracts something else. Gray Key will tell you within the first 5 minutes or less how long it's going to take for you to be able just to gain access. That access may be 5 minutes. That access may be 165 days. You just don't know. Now, once it's started, as long as you can keep the power to it, it'll sit there and do its thing. You come back 165 days later, hopefully
Right.
it's done what it's, and then you can run your reports against it.
So my question was,
It's-
are there weeks that you'll only need 10 or 15 hours?
Possibly.
Okay.
It's not going to be for a while because he's got so many back.
Well, I know he's got 7 or whatever cases working right now,
Yeah.
which is why my sense of
But
urgency.
realistically, knowing him the way I do and knowing what his work ethics are, if he's not working on a case or working on an issue, he's going to be trained. So you're going to get that 25 hours consistently, and he's going to do everything he can. I believe this wholeheartedly, that he'll do everything he can to get us up and operational within the 24-month window. He and I have had long talks about this leading up to it. I mean, I want you to consider the fact that nothing requires him to be here tonight. Nothing requires him to have submitted this to us tonight as a possibility for consideration, other than the fact that he cares about not only this department, but the men and women who serve, you people sitting on that dais, and the community that we serve. That's why we're sitting here tonight.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I've got one question. Even if we send this with a favorable recommendation to council, council doesn't meet for about 20 days or so. What's the stopgap? What do we do in the meantime to keep
Great
the wheels
question.
rolling?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, we're dead in the water. We're tied up to the dock.
Exactly what I'm trying to provide.
So maybe we could convince council to add this to their agenda for the 23rd?
Yeah, what would it take, President, to convince council to add this to the January agenda? Pretty important. I can beg if need.
Let's get to that point first. If there's no more discussion, I think I've got a motion. And I would like to make a motion that we send this to council with the favorable recommendation implementing the changes already outlined in the language by Alex and pending final approval and review by Council President Austin.
I second.
Motion's been made, seconded. Any additional discussion? Those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Motion carries 5-0.
I'll get that turned around to you.
Thank you, Council or Commission. Moving on to other business. We don't get a lot of attaboys, so whenever I get an opportunity to toot the horn of one of my staff, I want to do that. We had a web contact from just prior to the holidays on PSO Klinger, and I think it warranted recognition by the Commission, and so I made that a part of your packet. And for the public, I would like to read aloud. I received a citation for speeding on I-65 on December the 15th by PSO Scott Klinger. He was the officer who handled the incident. This was my first ticket in a number of years, but it's not an excuse to receive a fresh one. I believe Officer Klinger may have potentially saved me from an accident or worse, considering the current road conditions at the time. The ticket served as a wake-up call, and I wanted to express my gratitude for his actions. I know this type of feedback is not common, and he's absolutely right about that, but I am most appreciative for all that police do in the line of duty. I hope this message reaches Officer Klinger as a token of my appreciation. It may have been just another traffic stop on his shift, but it was an important event to me. Thanks and best regards, Claire Mark Cordels from Oak Forest, Illinois. Officer Klinger got a copy of that, and a copy of it also went into his personnel file.
That's awesome.
Also, if you're keeping up on the Behind the Badge series, the video series that's out there, the next one in the series was released. It's PSO Melissa Trump, and the next one up will be out, I think, February the 2nd. And with that, Commission, for the good of the order, that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Chief.
Entertain a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.